pleasure to introduce next speaker, Marvin, the CEO of Maestro, and he will share with you some insights about Maestro, which is the first infrastructure provider to power DeFi on Cardano, Bitcoin, and Dogecoin. The stage is all yours, Marvin.
Hello, hello. Hi guys, how you doing? So I've got a little presentation ready for you. Let me see. Yes, so that was great. So before I start, my name is Marvin. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Maestro. Before I jump into the presentation, we just finished a hackathon with Maestro, Wang Chen, and Argon. We had the 5 Fermi finalists that presented earlier today, and the 3 top finalists are going to be presenting on the main stage tomorrow afternoon for the grand prize. There's $25,000 on the line for the winners. So I invite you to join us on the final presentation tomorrow afternoon to see the great submissions and who wins the great prize. Now I'll jump into the presentation. So for those who don't know Maestro, Maestro is a Web3 infrastructure provider. Our goal is to really provide advanced developer tools for people building dApps. And we really specialize on UTXO-based blockchains. And so our services are available on Cardano, Bitcoin, and Dogecoin. And our mission is to build the complete Web3 stack for these blockchains to really help the developer ecosystem build on these DeFi ecosystems. Unable to switch? Oh, here you go. Wait, did I miss? Yeah, that's good. So the question is, building on Bitcoin is hard. And the reason is UTXO blockchains have different needs for builders than the typical EVM blockchains. Because a UTXO blockchain doesn't have a global state. And so you can't just query the data from the node directly and have the information you need to build these applications. And that's the case with EVM and Ethereum, because they have a global state. I lost the presentation, but I'll keep going. Maybe you can bring it back. Thank you. And so when you're building these applications, right, these are things like DeFi applications, DEXs, lending protocols, NFT marketplaces. But it doesn't have to be just DeFi, right? It could be a blockchain explorer, a bridge, an oracle. And these applications need to interface with the blockchain. But for UTXO blockchains, they need to first have this data layer that kind of is like this middle layer that allows you to interface with the blockchain. Because of its UTXO nature, you need to aggregate data before you can feed it into your application. And the 3 main kind of requirements to build a good data layer is responsiveness. So be able to build a blockchain indexer that is in real time indexing every block, right? You're not a few blocks behind, there's no block delay. You're able to have data that is at the tip. You also want data to be correct. So blockchains are deterministic, and these blockchains can have forks and blocks can roll back. And so you also need a mechanism that is able to make sure that the data is always reliable, even in the event of rollbacks. So you can imagine that when you're indexing forwards, you also need to be able to de-index backward with rollbacks. And lastly, you want a data layer that scales, right? So if you're building an application that has high demands, like a DEX or a wallet, especially during high traffic, when you have some kind of meme coin mania, then the volume can 10x very quickly. And so you want a data layer that is able to elastically scale to your data needs, that is decoupled from indexing the blocks as they come in. So that's the challenge. And so how do you build this, right? So in this slide, it's going to be the main slide of the presentation, is what is this data layer composed of, and how do you make it so that it has these 3 kind of key requirements. And to give you a comparison, I looked at how Web 2 traditional dApps have built, and building Web 3 has its own significant complexity and demands that you just don't have on Web 2. So this is a simplified version of a Web 2 application. A lot of you know this already. You have a front end where your users interact with your UI. That front end then talks to a back end where the application logic often is computed, and then that back end interacts with the data store where your app data is stored, the state of your app. But for Web3, you need all of this, plus you need to interact with an external data store, which is the blockchain. And so it adds a lot more complexity and additional tools that needs to be built by those developers. And often these tools are under the hood, and people don't often appreciate how much work is put into building these backends. And so I'll walk you through some of the basic ones. So the first one, that's probably the most important, is the blockchain indexer. So dApp developers need to run a node, a Cardano node, a Bitcoin node, but that's not enough for UTXO chains. You also need to index those UTXOs in order to aggregate the data into a form that's usable, right? So you need to aggregate addresses, so you can search by addresses, group by assets, group by transactions. And these are like what we call the blockchain indexing part of the pipeline. You also have optimization around submissions, right? So be able to know what will be the price of your transactions, fee estimation, but also submitting your transactions reliably, right? Are able to propagate transactions properly through the mempool. Maybe the mempool is on the low at the moment, it gets stuck for a while, maybe the transaction is too big. So there are a lot of optimization you can do here to make sure transactions goes through better. You have also event notification. So getting access to on-chain data is kind of a pool system, right? You passively index the data that's coming through the blocks. But sometimes you want to get notifications about specific events, specific actions that happens on the blockchain that you want to be notified for your application. And so these are event streams that you can filter and then kind of bubble up through webhooks. And that makes your application much more responsive and much more efficient. And on top of that, you can build higher level tools as well using those lower level tools. And so things like transaction monitoring is important. Transaction, when you submit it, right, it has its own kind of life cycle. It first enters the mempool and is pending for a while. Then you can get a notification when it's on chain, but you could also get a notification when that transaction is rolled back, and then on chain again, right? So if you're building a DEX and you have hundreds of transactions a minute being submitted, but being able to monitor which transaction made it on chain and which transaction didn't is important. And there's also all the logic around interacting with the smart contracts, the scripts, the on-chain scripts, and that knowing how to build those transactions to interact with the scripts, be able to query the UTXOs of the script and also of your user's wallet, and be able to build and balance those transactions. And then there are also even more advanced tooling, like be able to monitor the mempool itself. So if you really want to optimize your application, you can start chaining transactions by looking at what transactions are coming in the mempool. You can think of the mempool as a way to peer into the future, get a sense of what actions are going to happen on chain before they happen. And so that helps you kind of like proactively build transactions that take time into account. And as a result, that makes your application more responsive and allows you to make it feel faster because you're not just waiting for the block to come in. You already know what's coming in the next block, and your applications can prepare for it. So that's very useful for DEXs and wallets to really improve the user experience. And so as you can imagine, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of infrastructure that needs to be built under the hood before you can even have your application. You focus on what makes your application special and different. And so this is what we're specializing at Maestro. Is our goal is to make building DeFi, building Web3 easy, fast, and reliable. And so we abstract away a lot of those back-end infrastructure tools. And as a result, we lower the barrier to entry for developers, and we streamline the development process, where instead of taking 6 months to 10 months to build an app on Cardano, Bitcoin, or Doge, you may do that in 3 months. And so currently we offer a number of services that are very popular. Our main one is our blockchain indexer. Gives you enterprise-grade, high-performance, low-latency on-chain data. We have our transaction manager that gives you this all-in-one transaction monitoring system that allows you to automate retries and detect rollbacks. We have also price feeds. So if you want to keep track of the token prices across all the dexes, we aggregate and give you high fidelity price feeds, allow you to get in real time, the trends of these tokens. And many other, we're going to launch soon event notification that allows you to configure exactly what type of events you want to get notified for, and mempool monitoring, which allows you to peer into the mempool and proactively build transactions. And we've been doing this for a while. We're battle tested. We've been running it for a lot of projects. We've built a truly enterprise-grade, scalable application that also gives you really reliable data. And it's a complex solution to build, but we've built it for a while now, and we've optimized it in a way that really scales and is robust. Every month, we process hundreds of millions of API requests. We send millions of transactions, and we do that very fast at scale. And like I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, we're on more multi-chain. So many of us here know us from Cardano. This is how we got started. But we've also launched on Bitcoin and Dogecoin. And so we're helping these DeFi ecosystem grow and power the application under the hood. So we work with hundreds of dApps and projects that are using our data layer to power the application. You probably use some of them yourself, and without even knowing, are actually using Maestro's data layer under the hood to power this application. And so our goal is to become a leader in this type of Web3 infrastructure and really help supercharge this DeFi ecosystem, help them grow, and create some catalyst for further adoption. And so we're very proud to work with all these projects. Many of these projects are actually in this conference, in this room. And so feel free to talk to them, and they'll let you know about the experience of working with us. If you're a developer and you're building on Cardano, Dogecoin, or Bitcoin, and you've had to deal with those complexities and had lived through the struggles of building dApps, try out Maestro. It's going to make your life much easier. And if you're new as well, we have a free tier for people coming in. We have a lot of tiers based on your needs. So find us at gomaestro.org, and looking forward to see what you can build. Thank you.